By the time 1984 rolled around, we slowly began to see some regularity and consistency in what we now refer to as 80s horror. The slasher was becoming commonplace as practical effects continue to be taken to new heights. With that said, sure, there's no shortage of good films here, but the volume is much lower than it is in the rest of the decade. Whereas 1983, for example, had more volume but fewer classics, 1984 has more classic films but a roster that is a bit less deep. With all the preamble out of the way, as we truck along with our year-by-year breakdown, we present to you the 10 best horror films of 1984. A young couple is trapped in a remote town where a dangerous religious cult of children believes that everyone over age 18 must be killed. Based on Stephen King's short story of the same name, 1984's Children of the Corn heralded the beginning of Hollywood's assault on his short story collection. Films like Carrie, Salem's Lot, The Shining, and The Dead Zone had proved his name was bankable, but the poor man could only write so fast. Luckily, he had written a slew of short stories that had yet to be tapped as film projects. It's true, Children of the Corn shouldn't be held up with those aforementioned classic adaptations, but it's still good fun for horror enthusiasts. A couple who participated in a potent medical experiment gained telepathic ability, and then have a child who is pyrokinetic. Naturally, the government takes a great interest in the youngin', and operatives from the secret department known as the Shop want to quarantine and study her. Based on Stephen King's 1980 novel, Firestarter is quite a fulfilling watch. It has a strong script, decent directing, a kick-ass score, Tangerine Dream does it again, gripping drama, some interesting ideas, and a badass finale that will likely have you grinning from ear to ear. A comet wipes out most of life on Earth, leaving two Valley girls fighting against zombies and a sinister group of scientists. The notion of a couple of Debbie Gibson types being mankind's last chance is beautifully absurd, and Night of the Comet makes the most of this, mocking spoiled daughter stereotypes and poking fun at the shallow materialism of the day. It's a quirky, charming film that acquits itself well, like, seriously. Silent Night, Deadly Night was a movie that was shrouded in controversy. The TV spots depicted a man dressed as Santa carrying an axe and murdering people, causing enraged parents to picket the movie during its opening weekend, and subsequently got the movie banned. Although they clearly had not seen the film, many felt that it was wrong for Santa to be portrayed as a killer, not knowing the fact that it was actually a deranged and psychologically tortured man dressed as Santa doing the killing, as opposed to Kris Kringle himself. It's a classic tale of morons being told that they should be offended by something, as opposed to being genuinely offended. The film that more or less solidified Trauma as a Z-movie powerhouse. The Toxic Avenger follows Melvin, a 98-pound weakling janitor in a health spa who is constantly persecuted by a bunch of bullies. After tricking him into thinking that a girl is interested in him, a prank with a pink tutu and a stuffed goat goes horribly wrong, and Melvin falls out of a window into a vat of noxious chemicals. He is transformed into the hideously disfigured Toxic Avenger, who has considerable superpowers. With these powers, he cleans up the town of Tromaville by disposing of criminals, no-gooders, and corrupt corporate types in hilariously violent ways. If you've ever watched a superhero movie and felt that it needed more elderly, slave-owning dry cleaners being stuffed into washing machines, then this is the crime-fighting hero saga for you.
No sticky, no washy.
If somebody was unfamiliar with Jason Voorhees and the Friday the 13th films, and you could only play one movie for them, which would it be? Answer: this one. Friday the 13th Part 4 is like a best-of compilation of the entire Friday the 13th franchise. The perfect distillment of everything the series had achieved up until that point. Everything that the series is known for is presented without restraint. horny teenagers, drug partaking, skinny dipping, and machetes to the face. The film enjoyed the luxury of a much bigger budget than its predecessors. It was also the last entry of the series to present Jason as simply a mass killer, before he more or less became an unstoppable monster who couldn't get hurt. The film has memorable kills, great characters, and an irresistible atmosphere. It's everything. In films like Interview with the Vampire, In Dreams, and Byzantium, director Neil Jordan has shown a keen interest in gothic atmosphere and classic myths reimagined. But it all started with 1984's The Company of Wolves, a lush, ambitious, strikingly outsized play on the classic Little Red Riding Hood tale that makes explicit the dangers of a budding young woman straying from the path. A dream within a dream, and with dreams within it too, the film takes place in the mind of a ruby-lipped adolescent who has a nightmare about her older sister getting eaten by wolves. While her parents mourn, the girl goes to live with her sweet, protective granny, but despite the old woman's warnings, the girl's curiosity gets the better of her and leads her to an encounter with the big bad wolf.
The wild beasts know no mercy. They wait for us in the wood, in the shadow. And once you put a foot wrong, they pounce.
A young actor's obsession with spying on a beautiful woman who lives nearby leads to a baffling series of events with drastic consequences. Here, Brian De Palma pays homage to the Alfred Hitchcock movies Vertigo and Rear Window, adding a few grotesque touches all his own. The film switches gears quite often, grisly, erotic, funny, suspenseful, and just plain scummy, but somehow, it never feels confused. It's all just a part of the ride, one the viewer isn't likely to forget. It's also home of some of the best visual set pieces in De Palma's filmmaking career. True to form, De Palma misdirects the audience as often as he manipulates his characters, keeping us all in the dark until the mystery is ready to be revealed. Gremlins, the classic fright comedy about morphing little menace monsters wreaking merry mayhem all over small-town America during the holidays, actually opened in theaters on June 8, 1984. The movie became an immediate summer blockbuster, but given its very specific Yuletide setting, Gizmo himself, the original Gremlin, enters the film as a Christmas gift. Gremlins has endured as a beloved December viewing tradition. In fact, enough with Ralphie, that Red Ryder BB gun, and the joyful yet overplayed A Christmas Story. From here on out, we're starting a new holiday tradition, a 24-hour marathon of Gremlins. It's fun for the whole family, especially if your parents and siblings are the types who find the sights of hideous little creatures joyriding in the snowplow and terrorizing the townfolk to be hilarious. As you should.
There's a real gremlin in my cave!
By the time A Nightmare on Elm Street hit theaters, both the Halloween and Friday the 13th franchises were on their third and fourth sequel, respectively. The slasher trend was indeed trucking along, but audiences were about ready for a new boogeyman. Wes Craven was more than happy to throw his brown fedora into the ring. With baddies like Michael and Jason on the loose, audiences were growing accustomed to a psycho with a big knife who poached unsuspecting teens in one specific place. But what about a monster who comes to you? A Nightmare on Elm Street brings us a new villain in the form of Freddie Krueger, the vengeful demon who attacks his victims in their dreams. There are just so many things that make the original Nightmare on Elm Street great, it's hard to pinpoint just one. It's all so simple, so primal, but so clever and impeccably executed. From the concept, to the imagery, to the characters. Craven crafted a horror film that attacked the visceral and cerebral in equal measure.
Oh, and meanwhile, whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Once again, thanks for watching, and don't forget to let us know your favorite horror film in the comment section below.